Imagine that the rest of humanity disappears tonight. Radio signals vanish, satellites stop transmitting data, and global traffic comes to a dead halt. For the vast majority of us, this would be the end of the world as we know it. But for a tiny group of fewer than 250 people in the middle of the South Atlantic, the difference would remain almost imperceptible for months. Welcome to Tristan da Cunha. It is not just the most remote settlement on Earth. It is a time capsule, a geographical anomaly, and a constant challenge to human sanity and resilience. Here, isolation is not a mere statistic for geography books. It is the air you breathe, the wall that surrounds you, and the law that dictates every second of your existence. To begin to understand the magnitude of this place, we must reset our perception of distance. In the modern world, being far away means driving 4 or 5 hours on a highway. In Tristan da Cunha, being far away means that if you suffer from appendicitis or a serious medical emergency, your only salvation is 7 days of sailing through turbulent waters, assuming the ocean decides to be merciful and a ship is available at that exact moment. We are talking about an island that is literally the tip of a colossal shield volcano erupting from the abyssal plain, a stone giant rising from the dark depths of the ocean, traveling thousands of meters deep to reach 2,062 meters above sea level at its highest point, Queen Mary's Peak. If you look at a globe and search for the emptiest, bluest spot on the map, you will be near Tristan. Geographically, the island is located 2,430 kilometers from St. Helena, its nearby neighbor, which is itself another isolated rock. It is 2,800 kilometers from the coast of Cape Town, South Africa, and more than 3,300 kilometers from the shores of South America. There is nothing else on the horizon, only waves that have had thousands of kilometers of open ocean to gain terrifying strength and speed before crashing against the island's basalt walls. There are no protected natural harbors here. There are no deep-water piers where cruise ships can gently dock. There is only a small plain in the northwest, an accidental respite of solid ground amidst a ring of cliffs that drop 600 meters vertically into the abyss. It is on that tiny platform, surrounded by immensity, that Edinburgh of the Seven Seas clings, the village that defies the void. But how are there human beings there? How did our species end up colonizing an active volcano in the most inhospitable place on the planet? The answer is an amalgam of Napoleonic military strategy, tragic shipwrecks, and an almost mystical desire for independence. It all began in 1816, in a Europe just emerging from the Napoleonic Wars. The world was obsessed with one man, Napoleon Bonaparte, who was exiled on the island of St. Helena. The British, consumed by paranoia that the French might use Tristan da Cunha as a secret base to launch a daring rescue mission, sent a military garrison to watch the infinite horizon. However, when the garrison was withdrawn a year later, a Scottish corporal named William Glass decided he did not want to return to the noise of civilization. Glass, a man of ironclad principles, saw something in that rock that no one else could perceive: the opportunity to create a new society free from the oppressive hierarchies of Europe. Along with his wife, his children, and 2 other companions who shared his vision, he founded a community based on a social contract that today would seem revolutionary. Everything would be shared. No one would be superior to anyone else, and everyone would work for the common good of the settlement. It was an experiment in radical equality in the loneliest corner of the world. Over the decades, Glass's family was joined by sailors from whaling ships, castaways from Italian vessels, and adventurers of all nationalities who, tired of wars and industrialization, preferred the harshness of the island. Italians, Dutch, Americans, and English mixed to give rise to the 7 surnames that still define the island's identity in the 21st century: Glass, Green, Hagen, Lavarello, Repetto, Rogers, and Swain. If you value this content and want to discover why 99% of the world's population will never be able to set foot on this island, subscribe right now. Hit the bell so you don't miss our geographical expeditions, and help us reach more people who, like you, love the mysteries of our planet. Let's continue. Even though the people live off the land, their connection to modern money comes from the sea. The true engine of their economy is the Tristan rock lobster, Jasus tristani. It is a unique crustacean with a flavor so prized in the luxury markets of Japan, the United States, and France that its export finances almost everything the community needs to survive in the technological age. With the lobster profits, the island government buys fuel for electric generators, medicines for the hospital, timber for construction, and telecommunications equipment. It is a fascinating irony of the modern world. The inhabitants of the most isolated place on the planet depend directly on the most sophisticated and wealthy palates on the other side of the earth to keep their lights on. However, this isolation comes at a physical and psychological price that few outsiders could endure. In Tristan da Cunha, there is no labor specialization as we know it. There is no marketing expert, no plastic surgeon, no software engineer. Tristanian people are jacks of all trades out of pure biological necessity. A man might be an expert fisherman at dawn, a skilled carpenter at noon, and the person in charge of maintaining the generators in the afternoon. Women play crucial roles, from public administration and education to the preservation of traditional knitting techniques that are famous for their quality. In this community, your value is not in your university degree, but in your ability to solve practical problems that affect the survival of the group. This ironclad social system was put to the test in the most dramatic way possible in October 1961. The sleeping giant upon which they lived decided to wake up. Without warning, the earth began to shake, and a new volcanic cone emerged just 100 meters from the houses of Edinburgh of the Seven Seas. The evacuation was an epic of fear and bravery. The 264 inhabitants were taken first to Nightingale Island and then moved to 1960s England. It was perhaps the largest involuntary sociological experiment in modern history. What happens when you take a community that lives like it's in the 19th century and throw it into the heart of modernity? Tristanian youth discovered television, modern cars, nightclubs, and the anonymity of big cities for the first time. However, something happened that baffled social scientists. When the volcano stabilized in 1963 and they were given the choice between the comfort of England and returning to their solitary rock, the vast majority voted to return. They preferred to rebuild their homes on hardened lava and face the incessant wind rather than live in a world of strangers where the sense of community had been lost. Today, Tristan da Cunha is a society protected by immigration laws that would make any modern nation pale in comparison. If, after hearing this, you think, that's the ideal place to escape my boss and city stress, I have disappointing news for you. Moving to Tristan is, for all practical purposes, impossible. There are no residency visas for foreigners, no citizenship by investment programs, and there is no real estate market. The land is communal property. The right to live there is a right of birth or blood. The Island Council is extremely selective and only grants residence permits to essential workers, such as doctors or teachers, for 2-year contracts. Even British citizens, on whom the island depends politically, need special permits that are rarely granted. This policy of exclusivity is not born of xenophobia, but of an ecological and social survival instinct. The island is an extremely fragile ecosystem. The accidental introduction of a single invasive species on the sole of a shoe or a sudden increase in the human population could exhaust the fresh water supply and collapse the artisanal electrical grid. But beyond the physical, there is the cultural. In Edinburgh of the Seven Seas, social peace is based on absolute trust. There is no police because there is no crime. There are no locks because there are no robberies. And the keys to the few vehicles on the island remain in the ignition 24 hours a day. Introducing people without family ties into this balance is seen as a risk the community is not willing to take. The archipelago is completed by Inaccessible Island and Gough Island, 2 jewels of biodiversity that seem taken from a prehistory book. Inaccessible Island lives up to its name with black basalt cliffs that forbid human landing, protecting the Inaccessible Island rail, the smallest flightless bird on Earth. This creature has evolved there for millennia without even knowing that predators exist. On the other hand, Gough Island houses one of the most important seabird colonies in the world. where a minimal team of scientists lives in extreme isolation to collect vital climate data for navigation in the southern hemisphere. Despite its historical resilience, the future of Tristan da Cunha hangs by a demographic thread. The population is aging rapidly. In 2016, there were nearly 300 inhabitants. Today, that number has dropped below 250. Many young people who go to study in the UK or South Africa eventually decide not to return, seduced by a world where you don't have to plant your own potatoes to survive the winter. There is a real risk that in a few decades, the island will become a stone museum or a scientific outpost, losing the human soul that William Glass planted 2 centuries ago. Daily life on Tristan is a constant balancing act between traditional subsistence and the globalized economy. There are no shopping malls or 24-hour convenience stores here. The island store sells imported essentials, but the true sustenance, the life-sustaining food, comes from the volcanic soil and the raging sea. Each family owns its own potato plots, located in an area known as the Patches. These plots are protected by intricate hand-built volcanic stone walls, specifically designed to prevent the Roaring Forties hurricane-force winds from uprooting the plants. Potatoes are sacred on Tristan. They are the islanders' lifeline when supply ships are unable to reach the shore for months at a time due to storms. However, as long as smoke continues to rise from the chimneys in the settlement and fishermen continue to face the Atlantic every morning, Tristan da Cunha will remain the most potent reminder that human beings do not need hyperconnectivity to find a purpose. This place forces us to ask uncomfortable questions about our own civilization. Are we truly happier in our connected cities than they are on their lonely rock? Is progress a straight line toward happiness? Or have we sacrificed something essential, true community, at the altar of convenience? Tristan's isolation is not a weakness. It is its armor. It is what allows them to be themselves, without the interference of a planet that sometimes seems to have lost its way. If this journey to humanity's last frontier has made you reflect on the importance of community and what you truly need to live, please leave us a comment. We want to know your opinion. Would you be able to live a whole year in Edinburgh of the 7 seas, knowing that the next ship could take 3 months to arrive? Or would the lack of digital connection drive you crazy in the first week? Your participation helps bring these topics to a wider audience. Don't forget to like if this script has captivated you from the very first second, and share it with that friend who always says they want to disappear off the face of the earth. If you want to continue exploring the strangest geographies of our world, click on the video currently playing on your screen. Thank you for joining us until the end of the journey. See you on the next expedition.